We're going to start a new series this morning we call Game Night. Game Night. I want to show you this scripture. It's in 1 Corinthians chapter 9. If you could turn there, 1 Corinthians chapter 9, it'll also be up on the screen. There's this guy, his name is Paul, and he's kind of going around and he's starting all these churches. He's a convert to Christianity. Now, here's what's interesting about Paul. Paul started out as an enemy of Christianity. He started out as a Jew that was going around and saying, look, you Christians are kind of blaspheming the Jewish faith. And so we want to get you out of here. We want to get you in prison. We want to get you killed. And so he goes around, he starts doing these things, and he has this encounter with Jesus Christ. He's going along the way, and all of a sudden he's on this road to go persecute some more people, and all of a sudden a light shines down on him, just like the movies. A light shines down on him, and this voice says to him, Saul, Saul, that's his name, Saul, why are you persecuting me? And he's like, who are you? And he says, I'm Jesus. And there are a couple important things I always like to note on when we talk about this idea of Saul who becomes Paul. Listen, nobody's too far gone. I know you think people and you're like, man, I've got this family member, they'll never come to Christ. They'll never know. They hate Christianity. They hate everything about it. They'll never. Maybe for us, but one encounter with Jesus is all it takes. Jesus turned in one encounter, he turned this guy Saul from someone who was going out rounding up Christians and watching them as they were stoned and killed to someone who was going out and making Christians, preaching the gospel, and ultimately would be killed himself for the gospel. One encounter. Don't give up on anyone. And here's the thing, one encounter, don't give up on yourself. Here's Saul, he's going out and doing these things, and Jesus doesn't say, well, we're going to get that guy with a lightning bolt. Jesus says, you know what? I love his heart. I can use him. Don't give up on yourself. So Saul becomes across they did names differently back then. His name was Saul, and Jesus says, now you're going to be Paul, which had a different meaning. He says, so now they're going to call you Paul. You gave up your old life. I'm bringing you into a new life. And this guy Paul goes about after he meets Jesus, and he starts starting churches all over the place. And then what he does is, he starts a church and he's there with them for a little while, and then he goes somewhere else and starts a church. But then people will write him and say, like, hey, we don't know. What are we supposed to do about this? What are we supposed to do about that? Anybody ever had a question about your faith? Like, how am I supposed to react to this situation, right? What does the Bible mean about that, right? And so Paul will write letters to them. That's much of what the New Testament is people writing letters to new Christians saying, this is how you're supposed to live now that you're in Jesus Christ. Now that you have a relationship with Christ, here's how you're supposed to live. And in 1 Corinthians 9, that's exactly what he's doing. Let me show you this passage of scripture. He says this, do you not know that we just finished celebrating? How many people watched the Winter Olympics? Anybody? Yeah, we watched it. We kind of had it on a little bit. We don't watch it as much as we watch the Summer Olympics, I guess. But the Olympics, they had those back then. When we talked about the games, they had these kind of games back then, the Olympics, and other kind of smaller events like this. Paul is referencing those, and he says this, do you not know that in a race, all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? So he uses an analogy that everybody can kind of see and everybody's familiar with, and then he says this, he brings it into their spiritual lives. He says this, he says, run in such a way as to get the prize. He's no longer talking about a physical race. He's talking about this spiritual journey that they're on. And so he uses this thing that they can see and relate to and says, let me give you some spiritual truth out of this idea that you're very familiar with. Run in such a way as to get the prize. Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last. But we do it to get a crown that will last forever. These guys all go, they train for the Olympics, and they're training, and they've got to, qualify here and do this thing there and all these things. They finally get there. And then some of them have a great Olympics. And they come home and they've got medals, and it's what they've been working for their whole lives. And unfortunately for some of them, they come home and it's like that was their shot. That was their one. This was the time that they were at peak form. And they didn't do it. Someone beat them. And they come home with nothing. And some of them come home with medals, and then they try and go to the next Olympics, and they were the best 4 years ago. But now, not as much. They're just one fraction of a second off, and that makes the difference in the Olympics. And Paul is saying, man, those guys, they get a medal, they get a crown, they get a wreath. And it's nothing, it fades, it's gone. We are training for something that lasts forever. Therefore, he says, I do not run like someone running aimlessly. I do not fight like a boxer beating the air. No, I strike a blow to my body, and I make it my slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize. So he uses this analogy of things that they're super familiar with and says, okay, you're familiar with that. Let me draw some spiritual ideas out of that. And that's exactly what we're going to do with this game night idea. See, I said this earlier, but one of the things that we're big on in this church is kind of ruining your life with Christianity. That's exactly what we're trying to do. We don't want you to think of Christianity as something that happens when you come into this room, or that happens on Sunday morning at 10:30. We want you to think of Christianity as your life. That's what God has given you. He's saying, I want to give you a life, a new life. That's why Saul became Paul. He's saying, you were that guy. You're not that guy anymore. You're a new guy. You get a new name. Christianity is something that you want to walk out and you want to see the world through the lens of your faith. Everything through the lens of your faith. The music you listen to, sometimes maybe it's Christian music, sometimes maybe it's not. But you want to hear it all through the lens of your faith. The movies, the TV shows that you watch, through the lens of your faith. We did a series here one time. We said God is like, and we talked about things like garage sales, laundry we did. I can't remember some of the other ones we did. What's that? Gardening we've done. Yeah. Air conditioners. Whenever you walk out, whenever you look at life, you should see your faith. You should see that thing through the lens of your faith. And so I want to talk about this idea of games that we play, these board games that we play, and we're going to kind of couple that with some kind of social events where we invite people over to play these different games. So today we're going to start this series of game night talking about chess. How many people are familiar with chess? Raise your hand if you're familiar with chess. Okay, at least you're familiar with it, right? You might not all play it. Now, how many people actually play chess? Raise your hand if you play chess. Okay, so a few, yeah. Okay, so Thursday night at 7 o'clock, Elizabeth and I are going to host a chess game night at our house. Kids are welcome to come. You can bring the kids because I know some of them play. And we'll have a bunch of boards and a bunch of tables. What's that? It's this Thursday, whatever the date is this Thursday. I have so many things going on right now, I have no idea what the date is on Thursday. But this Thursday at 7 o'clock at our house, you can catch me if you don't know where that is. You can catch me on the way out and ask me for our address or whatever. We'll also send it out in the texts and in the email and those kind of things like that. So if you're not on the text list, sign up for that. If you're not on the email list, sign up for that. But in any event, we're going to talk about chess today, and I want to share with you 5 spiritual lessons we can draw out of the game of chess. So some of you know chess but don't play chess. How many people watched The Queen's Gambit last year on Netflix? As you were in COVID, you were in lockdown, so you had to watch something anyways, right? Okay, if you haven't, that was a pretty good show, and it was kind of chess-centered. So in any event, I want to talk to you about 5 spiritual lessons we can draw out of the game of chess. The first is this. I call it Queen on Her Color. The Queen on Her Color. My dad's here today. He actually lives in Kansas, but he's here today. Everybody say, hi, Dad. All right. My dad is here today. He taught me how to play chess. My dad is a chess player. He taught me how to play chess when I was young. And we would play, but my dad would always set up the board for us. And then we would play. I didn't know until much later that there was a way that I knew how the pieces were supposed to align on the board generally. But I didn't know there was a way the board had to be set up in order for those pieces to align correctly. And it goes like this. If you're sitting at the board, in the top left-hand corner, it should be a light square. And then, according to that light square, the queen is always on her color, and then all the other pieces are lined up accordingly. Okay? So, here's what that means from chess. There are rules. There's a way it's supposed to go. So I played several games, by the way, before I knew that, with people, not my dad, but people that I was playing chess with, and I had the queen on the completely wrong thing. And sometimes, like, my queen wasn't facing their queen, which they're supposed to face each other. Sometimes my queen was facing their king. Changes the game completely. See, here's the thing that's pretty true. God has given you this life. He's invited you into this life, but he says there are rules. There's a way it's supposed to be set up. There's a way it's supposed to work. That's what the Bible is, by the way. I know we think of the Bible, it's like, oh my gosh, it's a giant like rule book. It's all the stuff that I have to, it's God saying, this is the way life was meant to work. Have you ever, my wife does this. Have you ever bought a game at a store because you like the picture on the cover? Anybody else ever? You're just like, that looks like fun. I don't know what's happening there, but those people look like they're having fun. I want that game. My wife does that. She buys games. It's like, you don't know. The problem is, that's great, but you don't know what's going on. Sometimes we've gone to our friend's house. We went to our friend's house one time, and we were going to play a game, and they had the complete game, and they did this. They didn't have any of the rules. And we said, okay, we'll play this game with you. There's about 6 of us. We said, we'll play this game with you. What are the rules? They said, oh, we just make up our own rules. We look at the cover, and we make up rules to say, this is what we think happens in this game, and this is what we think would be fun. I'm not even kidding. I'm serious. So now listen, if you know me, you know I'm out. Nope. I need rules. I need a definitive way to win this game. I don't want people just making stuff up on the way. I played Monopoly one time with, they're not here now, there's some friends that are in Arizona, but I played Monopoly with some friends in Arizona. They had their whole set of house rules. And I would do something, they'd be like, oh, well, that's this because this and this and this. And I'm like, what? They're like, oh, yeah, we always play like that. And listen, that's how some of us approach Christianity. We're like, listen, God, I recognize, God, I recognize that you exist. I recognize that I'm a created thing. I recognize that you made everything, but I'm going to make my own rules. I want to do it my own way. And what's funny about that is this. You know, if you want to play chess without putting the queen on her color and without putting the board in its right position, you can. There's still a bunch of squares on the board, and there's still a bunch of pieces, and you can do whatever you want. And you could actually, here's the hard part for Christians, you could actually have fun doing it. I watch little kids play. I watch Jeremy's son play, and he just likes to, when he captures a piece, he likes to take the piece, pick it up, pick his piece up, and then knock over the other piece. Just kind of swing it and knock over the other piece. And that's the way he captures a piece. That's why I don't let him play on many of my expensive boards. But it's fine. He enjoys playing that way, right? That's the thing. See, Christians approach life like that. They want it like a chessboard. They want to do whatever they want. This looks fun, but let's make up our own rules. And what God is saying is, listen, I'm the one that made this game. I set the rules according to what's best. What would be best for you and what would be best for the world around you. That's one of the lessons that we draw out of the game of chess. There are rules. There are ways it's supposed to go. And you can switch all those things up. But when someone comes along and says, like, they say, hey, do you play chess? You say, yeah, I play chess. I love chess. And then you sit down and you start trying to play, and they're doing something completely different. You go, what are you doing? They're like, I'm playing chess. How I play it. Listen, you're not going to get any awards. You're not going to get any TV shows. And the same thing is true. It's like you can order the pieces of life any way you want. And sometimes it's even enjoyable. But God says there's a way this game is supposed to be played. And that's what I'm trying to inform you. That's why it's so important not just to believe in God, but have a relationship with him where you're talking to him, where you're interacting with him, where you allow him to direct you. Not just through the Bible, but as you pray and he says, hey, this is what I want from you. Hey, this is what I want you to try today. This is where I want you to go. I was talking to a lady last week that said, man, God has just been speaking to me all the time, and it's really weird. He just tells me little things that he wants me to do. I want you to go talk to that person. I want you to go talk to that person. And I told her, yes, that's exactly what he does. Be obedient. Keep it up. Yeah, the first lesson we can draw is this. There are rules to life. Queen on her color. There are rules to life. That's how it goes. God set it up that way, and if you play by his rules, that's how it turns out the best. And Christians do it all the time where they say, like, oh, I see the board, I see the pieces, I want to do it my way. Listen, you are not Frank Sinatra. God means you to do it his way. And that's the way you get the most out of life, this one and the life to come. The next one is this. Bring up that other thought. Got to have a plan, Stan. Man, sometimes you'll talk to people, I play chess, and I'm not great, by the way. I'm not great, but sometimes I play chess, and I'll talk to people, I'll ask people, do you play? And they say, oh, yeah, I play. You want to play? Yeah, let's play. I sit down. They just start moving the pieces. Okay, and, like a little clunky sound when they put one down. And there's no plan at all. Now, the game of chess is really interesting. It's been played for long enough that there are actually certain plans that people have about how they play it. There are names for those plans. There's something, so that TV show, The Queen's Gambit, it's actually named after a certain way of starting a chess game, the Queen's Gambit. And there's a Queen's Gambit declined based on how you respond to that Queen's Gambit. There's the Stafford Gambit. There's the Ruy Lopez. There's the French. There's the London. There's all these different plans on how to play the game. And here's what's interesting. Chess has been around for long enough that in certain ways, I always thought that the guys that were good at chess, you can watch them, if you're a nerd, you can watch them on YouTube. You can watch these guys play chess in these chess tournaments. And I always thought, these guys are amazing. They just see 20 moves ahead of you, and they know everything to do and all these kind of things. It's just amazing the way they do it. I didn't realize this. On that level of what they call the good chess players, grandmasters, they actually have the game memorized to a certain extent. So if you open the game and you do it this way, you say, I'm going to start with this plan, the Queen's Gambit. They say, oh, this is what you do if someone opens with the Queen's Gambit. You move this piece. Oh, they moved this piece? Well, the right counter move to that is this piece. They're actually not necessarily just making up as they go along for probably the first third of the game. They simply have it memorized. There's a plan. And that's what God is saying to us. Like, man, you got to have a plan. How you're going to live. If you're going to be a Christian, you need a plan. This happens, then this happens. I was watching this sermon series by Life Church, and the pastor, Craig Groeschel, he's doing a series. It's called Pre-Decide. And he's saying, here's all these things you need to pre-decide as a Christian. You need to pre-decide things. See, what happens is you and we get on the chessboard and we're like, I'm just going to do it. You know what? Looks good. I'm going to, right here. I like this move. This square is open and I can move there. I'm going to do it. And that's kind of how we live our life too. We don't realize someone else is playing by a plan. The enemy who's trying to get you has a plan. And some things you can't just do by instinct. I always thought those grandmasters were so good, and they are. It's amazing what they can do. They can play chess games in their head without even seeing the board. I've watched different grandmasters play blindfolded, and they have this notation. They'll say like, and in their notation they'll say the knight moved to this, and the grandmaster will say, okay, well then move my this to that. And they're blindfolded. They can't even see. They can do amazing things, but they have a plan of what they're trying to do. In that capacity as a Christian, you need to have a plan because guess what? Your instincts are awful. Your instincts are awful. Raise your hand if you're old enough to know my instincts are going to get me into trouble. Raise your hand if you're old enough to know that now, right? See, yeah, you know. So listen, here's the thing. I am stubborn. I am a hothead. I think my mom says it like this. You're just like your father. I react to things. Someone throws a cigarette butt out of a car, I become Smokey the Bear. I'm jumping out of the car and I'm like, hey, this is your cigarette butt. About to die. Our instincts are not good. I grew up, my dad was a Marine. My stepdad was a Marine. One of my first bosses was a retired colonel in the Marine Corps. My wrestling coach ran our team like he was a Marine. And I grew up in this kind of John Wayne era. When Jesus says, if someone strikes you on the cheek, turn to him the other cheek also. I had to tell you something. That's not my instinct. And I'm going to say that for almost every man in this room, I don't know how it is for ladies, but for every man in this room, that's not our instinct. Our instinct is not to go, all right, I don't want to hurt you, so go ahead. That's not the instinct. Have you ever, listen, here's how bad your instincts are. I'll tell you how bad mine are. Have you ever done something, you didn't even think about it, it just happened, it was just like, happened by instinct, and as soon as it happened, you were like, what did I just do? Have you ever done something like that? Why did I do that? And you're like, right? Yeah, our instincts are not good. You need a plan, and what God is trying to give you is a plan. He says, here's how I want you to act in this situation. Here's the principle that I want to govern your life in these situations. Here's how I want you to be when it comes to these situations. He's trying to say, I want to give you a plan for life because you're going to run into a lot of things, and you don't have time to think, and your instincts are awful. Your instincts are going to get you in trouble. Yeah, you know what? I'll tell you what. There are a lot of people in jail going like, my instincts suck. There are a lot of people who are living life right now, and they're dealing with the repercussions of their instincts, saying, I wish I had taken a moment to think about that. I wish I had pre-decided to do it this way. And some things you have to pre-decide. Paul talked about training. You have to train yourself because your instinct is moving in an opposite direction. Listen, I don't even need someone to slap me in the face to get angry. If you just start talking to me in the wrong tone, I am ready for a fight. Like a verbal one. It's sometimes a physical one if you get too loud. But my instincts are bad. I have to train myself. No, this is how you talk to people. I've heard it so many times from people. People will say this to me. This is funny. Okay, raise your hand if you're a loud talker. Raise your hand. Where are my loud talkers at? Okay. No, not me. I love the husbands and wives who be like, you raise your hand right now. Listen, I'm a loud talker. My whole family is loud talkers. I can't tell you how many times I've had a conversation with someone and they have said to me, stop yelling at me. How many loud talkers have ever heard, stop yelling at me? And here's what we think. I just want to let you know, to the rest of you who are not loud talkers, here's what we think. This ain't, you want to hear yelling? This ain't yelling. Stop saying that. Right? No, our instincts are awful. They're terrible. And God is saying, you need to have a plan. You're going to go into this life. Look, don't just say you want to be a Christian and jump on that board and start moving pieces. Go on that board with a plan. And God is trying to give you a plan. He's saying, this is the way I want you to treat people. This way. Well, what if they this? What's the plan? What if they say this? What's the plan? What if they look like this? What's the plan? What if they live like this? What's the plan? God says some crazy things. He says, love your enemies. I don't know. Like I used to say years ago, it's like nowadays in Western culture in America, we don't have enemies. Like as individuals, we don't have enemies anymore. Some of you, I know you're like, yes, I do. They sit on this side of the political spectrum and they say things like this, right? And God says, I want you to love your enemies. And God says this, he goes even farther. He says, listen, I don't just want you to love your enemies. I don't just want you to love the people that love you. I want you to love the people that don't love you. And I don't want you to just love the people that don't love you. I want you to love the people that don't love you and aren't good to you. And he goes farther and he says, I don't just want you to love the people who are just not good to you, but people who are actively bad to you. He says, pray for the people who persecute you. People who are actively doing evil to you, I want you to love them and love them not just like in the Christian way. Well, bless you, brother. Bless your heart. But actively pray for them, God says. That is not instinctual. That's the whole point of Christ coming. Is he says, you guys, your instincts, you're selfish. You want to put yourself at the center of the universe. And whenever anybody gets in your way, you want to just roll them over or stomp on them. He says, that's not the way I want Christians to live. You need to go into life with a plan. Do you have one? Or are you just, I get it, you're a Christian, you believe, but are you just living by instincts? Like, I think this is good. Man, get with God, get the plan. The next thing is that every piece matters. Every piece matters. There are a bunch of pieces on the board. There are 32 pieces on the board. There are 16 what we call pawns, and then there are 16 other pieces. Rooks, knights, bishops, queen, king. There's all these other pieces. And they have different roles. They do different things. They move different ways. They have different, like the way we might say, they have different powers. They have different things that they can do. But on the chessboard, every piece matters. Now, not to us. If you're like a baby chess player, you're like, these are the 3 pieces that I like. And I try and make everything happen with these 3 pieces. When you watch the high-level chess games, even having an advantage of like, oh, I've got one more pawn, the lowest piece than the other guy, that's considered, it's like, I'm winning the game right now. And if I keep it this way, I will win the game in the end because I have one more 1-point piece. In a chess game, every piece matters. They're all doing something. They set up offense. They set up defense. They set up decoys. They act sometimes as sacrifices so that you can do another thing. They force other people to do certain moves. Every piece matters. And here's what I want you to hear this morning. In our chess game of life, every person matters. You matter. In a chess game, every piece matters. There are different ranks and different abilities, just like life. Have you ever run up against someone and you're like, man, I can't do what they can do? Have you ever had to sing on a stage in front of people when you can't sing because you're singing people are sick? And you think, I mean, God, if there was ever a time for you to grant me a Mariah Carey a voice, it's right now. Or maybe Johnny Cash? Yeah, I'm not low enough for Johnny Cash. Every piece matters on a chessboard, and in God's game, every piece matters. You matter. That's not just a pastor saying that to you to make you feel good before you walk out of here. The Bible says you're a part of a body, and every part of the body matters to the body. Name a part of your body that doesn't matter to you. And always the smart people are like, my appendix, my tonsils, right? It's like, okay, great. Well, do you want to go into surgery to have them removed? Then they matter. Every piece matters. Have you ever noticed, like, it's only the smallest thing. Like, you might never, ever notice your pinky. But once you smash it, like, it seems like it touches everything. You could be doing something with this hand and your pinky's touching something over here. Every piece matters. You matter. Stop writing yourself off. Stop leaving it to everybody else and saying, well, the more important pieces, they can handle that. They can do that. You matter. God put you on the board for a reason. And the chess master needs you. Here's the next thing. Every piece on the board serves the king. It's all about the king. It's all about the king. See, that's the way life is supposed to be for us, for human beings in general, but specifically, especially for Christians. We're all supposed to serve the king. And here's kind of one of the issues with Christianity and Christians. We've made ourselves the king. We set the board up and we want all the pieces to play for us. In a chess game, different pieces have different abilities. In fact, the most powerful piece on the board is actually the queen. It's not the king, it's the queen. But guess what? Everybody plays for the king. That's really the only thing that matters on the board. Everybody plays to get the other king. Everybody plays to protect their king. That's the way a chess game is played. It's all about the king. And our lives, when you look at them, they're supposed to be all about the king. The point is the king. Let me ask you a question. If you're in here and you say you're a Christian, is the point of your life the king? I know this is a controversial thing because people are like, yeah, but I'm just trying to, yeah, but I'm just doing, but I've got a family and I gotta, and all these kind of things. And sure, yeah, but the point is the king. Our lives are supposed to be about the king, and everything revolves around that. The way that we treat our spouses is about our relationship with the king. I often say this to spouses that are not getting along super well. They'll say, well, I will do this when my spouse does that. I'll treat them right when they start treating me right. Or about other people. Well, yeah, those people, they're saying these things to me, so of course I said these things back or whatever it is. And I always say, it's like, man, it's not about them. It's about the king. Make the way you treat your spouse. Make the way you treat those people not about them, but about him. Yeah, they're not treating me right, but God, this is how I worship you. I treat them right. I do what I'm supposed to do because my life is all about you. You'll know if your life is all about you if you're reactionary to those things. It's an offense to you. They're doing these things, and it's offending me, and it's stealing my rights, and it's blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Did you or did you not give your life to the King? The Bible says at one point, you are not your own. You are bought at a price. That's what Christianity is, by the way. It's you giving your life to Jesus and then entering into a relationship with him through that gift of your life. And then you get his life, who he went to the cross to die for your sins. So you give him your life and you are forgiven. And then he says, now that your life is my life, I want you to live it like you are me. The point is the King. If you're a Christian here this morning, the point is supposed to be the King. It's so funny. Sometimes you can play a chess game and people can get off on little side things that they're doing. It's like, it's all about, I just want to capture this piece. And they completely disregard the king in the corner and they lose the game. Because they forgot. The point is the King. You can go on little side quests. You can do little things. But the point is the King. And then here's my favorite. The upgrade. Here's the thing. There's this kind of, it seems like a little known rule in chess, but the pawn, each different piece carries a different point value according to what its ability is on the board. The pawn are all those little tiny pieces that stand in front of the other pieces. They're only worth 1 point. And they can't do much. But here's the interesting thing. If a pawn gets all the way across the board to the other side and reaches the last file, the last line on the other side, they can promote to the highest piece in the game. They can become anything. Usually they become a queen because that's the most powerful piece on the board. Man, no matter who you are or where you started, God says, in me, you can become something great, something greater. I made you for a purpose. And sometimes we're living our life like we're just pawns moving across the board and we're just trying to get by, and God says, you don't know how wonderful you are. You don't know what you're capable of. You don't know how you're capable of changing the lives of the people around you, the world around you. The lowest piece on the board can become the highest ranking piece on the board, the best piece on the board. That's what Jesus says to us. He says, when you come to me, you become a new creation. I don't care who you were. I'm making you something new and better. I'm getting rid of your old sins. I'm inside you, working on you to change those habits that you have, to change your desires. I'm teaching you so that you can live according to the plan and stop doing harm to yourself and the people around you. Life with God is meant to be the upgrade. You are a new creation. You can let go of the old stuff. How many people have done some stuff? How many people have done some stuff? It's like, yeah, I don't want to talk about it in church, right? Hey, the pastor raises his hands too. And God says, hey, let it go. You're mine now. You're a new creation. We're on to a new plan. You're a new life. God has plans for us. We're pieces on his board. And we're meant to live it that way according to those rules. And like, God, this is how you want me to live. And we think, oh, you're taking all the fun out of life. And God's like, no. I'm trying to save you from all the dangers of life. I know how you're going to get the most of it. I've come to give you life and life to the full. You got to do it this way. You ever watch a kid try and play a game and he's not playing by the rules? Anybody? And you ever try and correct him? You're like, actually, here's how you're supposed to like. No, I like it this way. And you're just completely like, that's not how it goes. Right? Sometimes we're like that in life. And God is like, I want to show you what it's meant to be. I can give you the best life possible. Not just in the life to come, in the idea of heaven, But now, here's the plan. Here's the way the board's set up. Here's the way it works. Enjoy the upgrade. Make the king your point. We're going to close out with one last song. We're going to do it again. Are you ready?